Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Money Talks with Tim and Terry.
You sound like you could have been a guest DJ or something at the back in the day. So today is actually Monday, the 20th of March, and we're recording this. Normally we record on Saturdays, but I was away on Saturday visiting my mama, a couple hours away. So we are doing this on a Monday night, which makes me feel a little bit more like tired. So the lighting's a little bit different. And hopefully we get through this just fine, right?
I'm sure you will.
All right. So let's talk about money. So I was thinking we could talk about what we spent money on last week, which I don't remember everything exactly, but you're usually pretty good at that. And maybe talk about our food budget for the week as well. Some of the things that are on our food budget. And then I wanted to talk about, I've seen some Instagram stories talking about buying your children a house, like when they're born. And it kind of blew my mind. I was thinking, wow, are we like way far behind the ball on this one? Or is this just out of touch for most people? Maybe this is something our children can aspire to.
Right.
Okay, maybe. So we'll talk about that. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about how when we started budgeting and we gave ourselves a raise, I think we touched on that briefly, but how our food budget and kind of reining that in helped us.
Absolutely.
And then we'll probably have a couple things we talk about. But then the other thing I wanted to talk about that came up in conversation today was a reminder, some money reminders. So one of them is reviewing your explanation of benefits, right? Before you pay out, we have an HSA. So that means that we are on the hook. An HSA is a
savings account,
health savings account, and they're paired with
a high deductible insurance policy. So before our insurance kicks in, we have to hit like a $2,000 or $3,000 deductible. However, when we go to the doctor and we use the services, the in-network rate, because we usually see a doctor or a specialist or whatever that's in-network, we usually get the in-network rate. So we'll talk a little bit about making sure that you're reviewing your explanation of benefits before you're paying your provider, because they make mistakes too. Right.
And then something else that reminded me when I was having that conversation was, oh, by the way, check your Easy Pass statements. So we were driving this weekend and it just reminded me that if you have a toll pass, to make sure that you are reviewing your statements, your Easy Pass statements. Was it last year that we reviewed our Easy Pass statement? Do you remember?
It was after a trip. It was like two or 3 years ago, right after a trip.
We were reviewing our Easy Pass statement and realized that we were being double billed. So the Easy Pass was billing our transponder, and they were also billing us by plate. So there's a simple way that you can check. You can request a refund. My recommendation, of course, would be to check your Easy Pass. Like if you go on a trip, we reconcile our costs for our vacations, for example, or for our trips,
right,
throughout within a 30-day period, I would say. So we would sit down and just kind of make sure that everything that we spent was logged into the budget, and we try to see how we did, right? And,
yeah.
We could try to come in on target when we are creating a budget for vacation, but it's hard to sometimes remember everything.
Yeah.
So,
I found that out when I was planning out our next trip.
Definitely. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. That you're stuck in revenge travel mode though. So there's that.
No,
too.
I meant in terms of trying to remember everything that goes into planning a trip. Like you have to pay for the dog walkers, you have to account for tolls and gas.
You weren't using my template. I'm so disappointed. So there is a template available for you. You don't even have to purchase it on Etsy. It's on the Mac. So you just pull it up and plug it in. But yes, you're correct. It's like every single thing, every single line item adds up after a while. All right, so let's get started. I totally forgot what my first one was now. So what did we spend money on last week? So I mentioned I went to see my mama. So I drove with my sister. My sister actually did the driving. So I split tolls and I split gasoline with her. Gave her a little bit extra because she was driving her car. The tolls were like $35 each way. The gas was $50 to fill a tank. So
I wound up just paying her like $100 for the whole trip,
Right.
kit and caboodle. And then what else did we spend money on last week?
Well, because you were away and I was entertaining Ryan, I took him out to dinner, just the two of us, on Friday evening, and then I took him to the batting cages and bowling on Saturday. But other than that, nothing. We didn't spend any big ticket items this week. Nothing real out of the ordinary.
Great. And then yesterday, or actually was it Saturday, I got a text of a grocery list from you. You put together the menu for the week all by your lonesome, which I was very proud of you for doing. And so we had, obviously, I was away on Friday, and it was St. Patrick's Day. So we celebrated this evening with
our traditional St. Patrick's Day menu of corned beef, cabbage, potatoes, and carrots.
And Tim makes this delectable Thousand Island dressing, which, do they call that something else in Ireland?
I don't know what it's called.
It's tasty.
You know, it's what goes on a Reuben, so how can it be wrong with corned beef?
Yes,
So.
But you add horseradish to yours, which makes it phenomenal. And then tomorrow we'll have leftovers of that, so we have a busy week ahead of us. So we're going to make up some corned beef, Reubens, excuse me, yes, Reubens. And then I don't remember the menu for the rest of the week. Sorry, Wednesday?
Wednesday is typically, to my chagrin, breakfast for dinner, which is, of any possible dinner combinations, my least favorite. Breakfast has a time of day and dinner time is not it. But because I live with 3 people who like to have breakfast for dinner, we will have breakfast for dinner usually one night a week.
So we can have the challah.
This week is challah French toast. We have a loaf of challah in the freezer to get used up.
Awesome.
And
Thursday,
what did we say Thursday?
Did you fish fry? Because we have some flounder. We have some flounder.
Fish and chips on Thursday. And then Friday will either be pizza or, if I get my way, a date night for Terry and I, and the boys are on their own.
Oh, excellent. So they'll probably be making burgers then. All right, great. So that's perfect. All right, so let's flip into, we could talk about, so you spent, I saw you put it in the budget. It was $52 at Aldi for groceries and $20 at ShopRite?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple things that I forgot the first trip to Aldi and were too expensive at ShopRite. So there were a few trips, but all in all, our groceries were right around, if not under, $100 this week. Again, we're kind of using some stuff we have in the pantry or in the freezer, but making enough corned beef tonight to cover tonight's dinner and Reubens tomorrow.
Drove that cost up.
No, but I mean, it's still.
Yeah. You don't have that all year round usually.
Right.
So great. That's perfect.
Yeah, and we're in a busier season of the year right now where with extracurriculars, we're going to be going into quite a bit of crock pots and stuff that can be prepped ahead of time and just quick, easy meals for
30-minute meals, basically, over the next couple of weeks as we head into the springtime madness, I like to call it. And might I add, I think you could have breakfast every night of the week and I'd be totally fine. And I am super grateful for my boys who definitely would side with me on that. As long as one night they'd be like, can we have a burger on French toast? They get their burger.
I would not put that past them.
Definitely. All right, that's good to hear. So let's talk about the Instagram story. I had shared with you that I had seen an Instagram reel about buying your kids a house when they're a newborn. Obviously the house is in your name, but it's for their benefit. And we are not financial planners, so we are just talking about this out of just
observation,
not
giving advice. Or
2 people, one person here who's like, what am I doing wrong? So just trying to kind of think about how you would what would the pros and the cons be for that. But I know that, so the purpose of you buying your child a house so that you could collect rent, and then in 18 years you could sell it or you could use the rental income to pay for college. You could sell it and then buy a house at wherever they've chosen to go to school, which I thought that was a terrible idea, because then they said you could sell that when they're done school. And I'm like, well, typically you'd want to keep it for 7 or 8 years to make your...
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to buy it and then sell it just 4 years later.
So I wanted to kind of talk about that. Like, so Tim and I, our next step in building wealth, one of the things that we've been considering is entering into the real estate market, real estate investment market. It's been a hot market around here the past couple years, probably everywhere.
Right.
So jumping into that is not a decision we take lightly. You definitely make money on the purchase price. So if you're buying at the top, I just think that's a fatal error for anybody trying to build wealth, especially if you're new in the market. But wanted to kind of talk about, so we don't take it lightly. Like when we see something like that, we think we've been studying the market, we've been studying bigger pockets, we've been like trying to put together how we would do this, how we would enter this real estate investment market. Would we manage the property? Would we delegate that to somebody else, and in delegating pay for somebody else to do that? Real estate is not passive income. It's just not. And I think to tell somebody to buy a house, here you have a newborn, right? And to buy a house to deal with that on top of it, I think all I could think of is all of the stress that would go into that, right? I guess if you're making an assumption that the person that you're giving this advice to is out of debt, doesn't have that stress, because being in debt was stressful, has, a rock solid marriage partnership that they can rely on, and is just far better off than I think we would have been, then I guess maybe that wouldn't be a terrible strategy. But I just felt like looking at that thinking, gosh, what am I missing? Like maybe I'm missing something big here. I would think that if it was us, right? And this is actually a true story, what we did for a different purpose. When our boys came along, we started investing $100 a month into their college funds. And that money will grow over time. And after a certain while, we bumped it up to $200 a month. And I think it was after we were done paying for daycare in each instance.
Yeah, pretty much.
And TJ has since told us he's not planning on going to college. So there's that, a little bit of a divide in the road. But just some numbers for you. If you do invest $100 a month for your child, up until age 22, which I understand is like the end of college for most people, at an average rate of return, you would have $95,000. And then at that point, I mean, obviously, if you could back it off 4 years and use that money to pay for college, but say you raise money smart kids, hint, hint, right? And say your money smart kids find a way to fund college that didn't utilize the money out of that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say necessarily to put it in a college fund, because it's not easy to convert a college fund into that I'm aware of, into a retirement account. But so you raise money smart kids, they go to college debt free. Now you have $95,000 at age 22 that you could somehow convert over to them, again, not in a college fund. It would have to be probably in an IRA.
Right.
And they don't put another penny in. And at age 59 and a half, with an average rate of return of 10%, they would retire with $3.7 million. They could buy a lot of rental properties with that.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to give a shout out to people that, like, maybe you don't have the means to purchase a real estate investment property when your baby's born. We didn't either, so don't worry. But something as simple as putting $100 a month away, $25 a week, can really still make a huge difference.
Right.
But I think another big difference is raising money smart kids, teaching them about money. How do we teach them about money?
They have money.
You pay
use
them
money.
for chores.
Pay them with chores.
You pay them for chores. You teach them to divide their money into give, save, spend, and hopefully you never have to worry about them being in debt.
On a similar note, I saw a story this week as well. It was, I think it was an Instagram or Facebook reel saying how starting at the age of 18, if you charge your child $250 per month of rent,
Mhm.
and you put that into a savings account,
High yield, of course.
well, even if you just set it aside,
Mhm.
and from the time they're 18 to 25, you keep collecting that $250 a month.
Mhm.
Then at the end of that once they hit 25, you have $21,000 that you could gift over to them for the purpose of purchasing a house or
Mhm.
whatnot. So, and it teaches your child, adult at that point, but they're still your child, teaches them that extra layer of financial responsibility
Mhm.
of paying rent, puts them in a routine of paying their rent, paying their mortgage,
Mhm.
and then at the end of those 7 years, at age 25, when they're ready to move out and buy a house, you can say, well, hey, here's $21,000 that I've been saving from you.
Yep, definitely.
So,
Now, in Money Smart Kids, do you remember what the recommendation was at the end of the book?
didn't Dave say something about buying your kid the first house?
So if you raise Money Smart Kids and they really catch fire and they get it, that maybe you could gift them the first house. So I was like, I don't know about that. Maybe match, but not gift. I'm not sure about that. So anyhow, so it's just a reminder that, you don't have to do crazy things to gift your kids. The real estate, I'm still hung up on it. It's not passive income, right? Somebody has to manage the property. You could manage it, but you're also managing an infant, or trying to take care of an infant, right? You have to repair the building.
Yeah, you have to keep it up to date. You got to make sure the rents are paid.
You got to pick good
bills are
renters,
paid.
good tenants.
Yeah.
You might sometimes have to evict a tenant. Like, I just feel like that advice, I feel like, was just for somebody in our situation. I was like, that's terrible advice. I do not recommend that. So, anyhow, just a reminder. There's also not a one-size-fits-all approach to every situation. However, there is an absolute right way to go about things. And I think that I can say that Dave Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they all agree on this one thing, that you should get out of debt, get on a budget, get out of debt, build an emergency fund, and then start building wealth. Now, they go about two different paths from that point forward. Kiyosaki believes that having debt in business is completely acceptable, and Dave Ramsey doesn't, based on his experience with the bank. So if you get on a budget, get out of debt, build an emergency fund, and build wealth, you can't go wrong. So I did want to talk about the benefits a little bit of getting out of debt for us. You'll never regret getting out of debt. And I was talking to my sister this weekend about how I said, when you're talking to like somebody who's going to be a new mom, a first time mom, and you already are a mom or a parent, I'll say parent to include you in this, and you say, like, you can't explain to somebody who's not a parent what it's like to be a parent.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be ready to experience it themselves to appreciate what you're trying to tell.
Right. And I think it's the same way with getting out of debt. You can't explain to somebody who's in debt what it feels like to be out of debt. You can ask them questions and have them dream. So I wanted to kind of shift into this a little bit to talk about one of the benefits of getting out of debt, dreaming. So I remember having a conversation with you a little while ago, and hopefully nobody from your work watches this too much. But wanted to say that remember when I asked the question of, would you do the job if you didn't have to work? Would you be doing your job that you're currently doing?
Absolutely not.
Right. You don't have to go into any detail there, but I mean, it is a 9-to-5 desk job with corporate BS, right? From time to time, they all have it. It's not just his job. And I have been saying for years, right, to you in particular, I don't feel like you're keeping up, right? I don't feel like your company, they don't give you nice bonuses, they don't give you nice raises. It's like a job and that's it, like maybe 2% a year. And now we're going into the season where it's like, whew, so glad I have a job, right? Because the market might get a little bit, is it bearish here or bullish? I can't. Bearish. But that's one of the benefits to getting out of debt, is that you can start dreaming. What was I meant to do? What am I here for? Who am I here for?
Yeah, when you're in a position where you can say, if not needing the paycheck that I currently have, what would I rather be doing to make a living that I might actually enjoy?
Right. I think that's a huge thing. So doing work that matters to you, doing work that you feel like you were put here to do. And when you can look at your budget and you can say, I need this much income, this dollar amount, instead of, and I do believe that stepping into that, like this is work I want to do, will ultimately yield for you in particular, I think it will yield a bigger income down the road. I think that this is a story that you'll get to write 5 years from now, and kind of look back on with like a lot of pride. But I think that that's a huge side effect to getting out of debt. That now you can step into something where you can do work that you feel matters, do work that is near and dear, do work that you feel like can actually change the world. I think that's a big deal. I said, like, wrote down some notes here on doing like a passion project, and so I think and that's something. So we are stepping out and talking about money and trying to make it known to people, like screaming from the rooftops that you don't have to be normal and broke, that you can get out of debt, that it requires that you get on a budget. On average, people who walk this journey, it takes them about 2 years from the point in time when they make the decision that I'm tired of being sick and tired and I'm gonna change something. It takes about 2 years. And it takes about 10 years for people to go from I'm tired of being normal and broke to everyday millionaires. So I think that's pretty fast, right? And I think it's never too late. It's never too late to get started. You might feel like I'm too far gone. You're not. So other benefits to getting out of debt, and I just have a couple notes here. There's so many, I couldn't possibly write them down. Maybe I'll write a book someday. But generosity. We previously talked about generosity.
Yeah.
Being able to meet the needs of your community, being able to live with your head up and your eyes wide open to see what's going on around you. Because sometimes there's needs out there that you just have to use your eyes to see that there's a need. And if you're too busy focusing on the inside, focusing on yourself, focusing on your, like this very small circle around you, you're not living with eyes wide open.
Right.
If you're busy getting out of debt or your expenses are greater than your income, you're not able to put yourself in a position to be generous. The most generous.
Right.
Living an abundant life of generosity. So, okay. Third benefit to getting out of debt. Your hard-earned money, I have to look at this, is yours to manage. Nobody else's.
Right.
So today I was writing this down, and obviously I said, your hard-earned money is yours to keep. And TJ said, yours to manage, right? Because he recognizes that it's not ours to begin with, which is a really timely church message from yesterday.
Absolutely.
We watched it Saturday, actually, and it was fun to watch it with my mom. And it's not ours, it's his. So it's ours to manage. It's not ours personally. So, and if you can be trusted with the little things, you have no idea what's in store for you. So, benefit number, 4? These are in no particular order, by the way, just to say. Less stress, less anxiety, more peace, more freedom. And I said, anything you want to add on to that? I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, no, I mean, just like you said, with the more peace and more freedom, if you were in, if we were in a boat where we had lots of debt, a call from your sister saying, "Hey, do you want to go visit mom?"
Mm-hmm.
might throw a wrench into things because, hey, money would be tight, but because of budgeting and because of living debt free and
Having margin.
and having some margin and some money set aside, you're able to say, yeah, not a problem. Yeah, let's go.
Yep, definitely. Good point. Yep, definitely. And I think that, less stress, less anxiety, better marriage, better relationships, most couples, when they do fight, they fight about money. And in statistics related to divorce, money fights are often at the top of the list, which is so sad to me.
Right.
Which I think it's important. That's critically important why people, before they get married, have to be on the same page about money. You have got to be on the same page about money before you get married. If you're not, you got an uphill battle. I don't feel like we ever, I'm going to say I don't feel like we ever fought about money. I just don't remember it. Maybe I compartmentalized it. Do you remember fighting about money at all?
Little bits here and there, nothing major that I can remember.
Because I don't feel like either one of us, we were never sneaky about money. There was always conversation, except for a couple weeks ago when Tim went to Walmart, which we talked about how we forgave you and excused how we got there, right? That we've given each other some grace, that if you're at the store after 22 years of marriage, nearly 23 years of marriage, and I actually read this in Sacred Marriage, by the way, you do have wiring that is like completely, like, so you could be out at Walmart, you could see something and be like, I know Terry would want me to get that. And yes, that we have that, right? But because we're trying to rein in any extra spending with my drop to part-time, because we still have big goals this year, money-wise,
Right.
and we want to hit those targets so that we can continue on our journey. And so I think that that's important as well. All right, so less stress, less anxiety, more peace, more freedom. And then last thing I have on this list, which I think is number 6, is that you get to live a life that you love. Because far too many people go to work because they have to. They don't go to work because they want to. They go to work because, I've said it, I owe, it's off to work I go.
Right.
Right? At some point, maybe I'll share the story about how during COVID, both of us were at risk of, I thought, losing our jobs. And would have probably done something that could have created inherent harm to either one of us, or disability, permanent disability, or death, and chose to stand up and say, no, I'm not doing this because it's not what's best for my family.
Right.
I won't be coerced. I won't be blackmailed. I'm not doing it. So have a life that you love on your terms. I think that is absolutely. And our kids don't see their parents fight about money. They see us talk about money,
Right.
but they don't see us fight about money. They know what these respectful discussions should look like, so that when they go into their relationships, they know what's normal. And if something becomes amiss, they'll know it's not normal. So, okay. So that's all I had for that, the benefits of getting out of debt. And then last, we'll talk about explanation of benefits. So again, I have an HSA, health savings account, that covers our family, and that's attached to a high deductible health plan. I personally feel like these high deductible insurance plans are out there to prevent you from wanting to go to the doctor. It works, doesn't it? It works for me. I'm like, nope, I'm good. So annual physicals are usually covered at 100% because they're preventative. And up until everything else gets billed to the insurance carrier, and you get charged by the doctor they'll just send you a bill for the in-network rate.
Right.
So Tim went to one doctor last year. I have to share this one. I'm sorry. The doctor's visit, the initial doctor's visit, was $600. Remember?
Yep.
And the insurance said, I think we were on the hook for $400. So you hand over your HSA debit card, or you can complete your payment online. But before you do that, you should be reading your explanation of benefits. And you should be making sure that the insurance says, this is the part that you owe, or this is the part that they can bill you for, so that you understand, like you have a match or reconciliation to say that my insurance agrees that this is what I should pay for. I don't think that we've had an issue recently. I did have an issue with an ambulance service in our area. I suspect that they're all like this, where they came out a couple years ago, right? And their charge was $1,500 for a 9-mile drive to the hospital, right? It was about 9 miles.
Yeah.
And I got a bill from them, and I pulled the explanation of benefits, and the insurance provider said you owe like $700. And the ambulance service was saying, no, you owe us all $1,500 because we're not in network. Turns out they're not in network for anybody but Medicare. So that's a completely separate issue. But by looking at the explanation of benefits, you at least have a conversation to have to say there's a mismatch. I've had some other times where things are kind of like, they don't make sense. And so you can have a conversation. I'll call if it's too much of a wait. I'll just send an explanation of benefits with a circle and, you know, I'm willing to pay this amount, or I'll pay that amount that the insurance says that I owe on their online portal, and then send a letter and get the balance reconciled. Anything else to add to that?
No.
But like, that could be free money. So like, don't not look at your explanation of benefits.
Yeah,
Don't assume.
Don't assume that it's right and just pay it when you could end up being overcharged. Or
I think it actually happens quite a lot that people wind up getting overcharged. So make sure you're looking at that. Anything else on that?
Nope.
And then last but not least was the Easy Pass, which I think we talked about in more detail previously. So if you use the Easy Pass, first off, here in the state of Pennsylvania, you can get billed toll by plate.
But you pay an even higher toll.
It's double. It was $34 to go where we went this weekend, or if you didn't have Easy Pass, a transponder, which in the state of Pennsylvania is $3. I think they charge you a year. I'll have to check that to make sure that's accurate. But they would charge you $70 if they had to toll you by plate.
Wow.
If they had to toll by plate. So there's a lot of benefit there. I know people say, I don't want to be tracked. I'm like, okay, this is one of life's inevitable, right? You just have to deal with it. And if you go through different states, I even think that when we did look at that reconciliation, or we were reconciling the costs, I can't remember if we were double billed in Pennsylvania, but I know we were double billed in New York.
Yeah, the GW Bridge.
Passing the George Washington Bridge, and I think it's like $16 each way, or $20. You notice that. You would notice that. And they were pretty quick to return it. But how many people don't notice it? How much money is the New York, what would that be? I
don't know what they call it. Their transit authority.
Getting a lot of money out of people, not paying attention. So that I think is pretty much that. Anything else you had for money?
Nope, that was it for this week.
Great. So hopefully you guys found this video helpful, and we'll try to come back on Saturday with more topics of conversation. But if you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like us to discuss anything in particular, let us know in the comments. Otherwise, of course, yes, please, if you did find this useful, somebody else might find it useful too, so please feel free to like, subscribe, and share. I'm not very good at asking that, right? I don't like asking for help. So
button somewhere down here.
All right, guys, have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.